Hey, everybody, and welcome to Cars with Cocktails, a show where we join two things that go perfectly together, drinking and driving. And again, Charles and I are live.
That was a pretty heavy pour.
That was pretty significant. Yeah. Apparently, we're getting hammered tonight.
We are not fooling around. So tonight, clearly Paul is at the shop again today, working on this black Tiguan behind us, which is a pretty fun project with a, are we ready to say a little bit about that? So this is actually, this Tiguan belongs to one of the head writers for Jalopnik. His name's Jason, pretty rad dude. And he bought this Tiguan for his wife, knowing that the timing chains are a problem.
Could be a problem.
Yeah. And you'll never guess what happened to said Tiguan. Timing chain failure. It's pretty epic. We're working on a video. It should be a fantastic time and a great watch. So I think we've done maybe a pretty bad job, but I think we don't necessarily need a good job of reminding you guys that if you want to check out like our channels, I don't know if we have them linked. Maybe we'll link them up. Maybe we won't. You could just search them, Humble Mechanic or Deutsche Auto Parts.
More importantly, you also can get this on iTunes, Stitcher.
I think Amazon now also has podcasts.
Oh, imagine that.
Yeah.
And Spotify, although it seems like Spotify's behind. So you can get the audio version if you prefer that as well. So with that said.
That's the long way around to say we are drinking whiskey and apple cider. And really, there's kind of two reasons for this. One, I was just in Pennsylvania, stopped at this really cool little Amish roadside stand and got a bunch of apple cider. And I had the Jim Beam Black Extra Aged Bourbon. Also, I'm lazy and didn't want to think of anything to try and drink.
True.
So props to my wife for coming up with this idea. Also, it's one of my favorite things. Cheers.
Cheers. Oh.
It's spicy.
It is got a little heat to it.
Yeah, I like it.
Okay.
I like it. Reminds
So
me of
today,
fall.
fall, that makes me think this or maybe pumpkin spice lattes.
Ooh, PSLs, bro. Basic.
If you are a basic bitch.
Basic life. I in general like pumpkin flavored things. I find pumpkin spice lattes to taste like you're drinking hot dog water, which is just it's like a repulsive taste to me. I do though like the pumpkin scones are super delicious, but so I'm like half basic bitch, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not.
I do like a damn iced latte.
I don't like pumpkin things,
Yeah.
pumpkin pie, pumpkin anything, and I don't like coffee. Which I wish I could like coffee. Honestly, I wish I could.
Swing and a miss. So we are talking about a topic that as soon as I think the ship has sailed away on this topic, something comes around and just brings it on back, and that is the VW diesel scandal 3 years damn later.
It is the dead horse that we must kick forever.
It keeps getting beat off daily. And I think what brought this topic up this time was Mercedes-Benz just got fined a ton of money for similar scandal. It obviously didn't explode, maybe not yet, like Volkswagen did, but it's still going around for these type of fines.
It's certainly making the rounds. I mean, I think two things that I think are notable about that is the number, and I looked into it a little bit when I saw the news come out. It seems like the number of vehicles, because obviously diesel Mercedes are a higher-end car, the number of volume, it just tends to not be nearly as high, especially when you talk about the global market. You know, VW, obviously, you and I both know, and probably most of you guys know, globally, VW is massive.
Yeah, they're battling 1 and 2.
Right, between Toyota, right. And in the U.S., they represent about VW, I think it's like 2% market share or something in that nature.
VW US is like the bastard child of Volkswagen Global.
So the number of vehicles affected globally, even with that market share, the small market share in the U.S., a lot of cars here were affected and whatever. So, I think that brought up also, and I don't know if you saw this, but they also charged the former CEO from the time of the Dieselgate, Martin Winterkorn, in Germany.
Yeah, no surprise there, but like, geez, at some point, like, this has to go away. And I don't want, when I say things like that, I don't want that to come out as like, I'm supporting Volkswagen for all the things that they did. Look, we're going to get deep into this because I think when you say anything other than they should burn at the stake and it's the worst tragedy ever and they're killing monkeys like that damn documentary from Netflix, Like, I'm not taking anything away from that, but that shit punched me personally in the face deeper than 99.9.5% of the people complaining about it. And I'm going to be excited to talk about that
I
tonight.
will say, so at the onset, let's maybe discuss, because I'm sure most people probably have seen that documentary. It's called Dirty Money, I think it is.
Yeah, Dirty Money. It's a series. Like, there's like 5 or 6 different videos.
They had one on Wells Fargo, I think, that I saw when I first went to look, because preparing for this, when you mentioned, hey, let's do this, like, I was like, cool, let's do it. I had never watched it, because I knew it wasn't going to be something that I thought would be particularly accurate. I thought it would have been very, I don't know.
It was like super sensationalized of all the things that would happen, and
so I fell asleep watching it because I found it to be terrible. But the thing that I found to be the most objectionable about it is, in the beginning, there's a guy who they like kind of follow. I don't know if he's the producer or writer or maybe some combination of all those things for it. And he's in his TDI sport wagon. He's saying how much he loves it. And then they cut to him just as he's like going to pull up to the dealership to trade his car in, where they also decide they're going to berate the people at the VW dealership,
like
which
the dealership
like the
people
fucking
had a
dealership
damn
did
thing
it.
to do with it.
Fucking idiots. And then he turns to the camera. He's like, "Fuck Volkswagen," and it's just like it. My body had a physical reaction with how cringy the entire scene was, and it was clearly there. By the way, they cut straight from that to Hitler.
Yeah.
Which is like, okay, everybody knows the shade, the dark past of the VW world.
Sure.
It's impossible to deny that this existed, but like the idea that you tie Dieselgate to Hitler, it just like,
yeah, it's ridiculous. Ridiculous.
Right. And the thing that happened, and I think you were out of the dealer, right?
No, I was.
You were still there?
I was in the
You were
dealer
still there.
When that was,
yeah,
when
so
that-
you
all
probably
that
saw
broke
more
down.
than me, because I was out of the dealer. But I had heard stories from people. I heard stories of people who brought their car in and like stamped their feet and yelled at people and said, "I'm not leaving with this car. I'm not driving this around the roads." And they're like,
Okay.
okay.
A good deal on a trade-in. Like, what do you expect from these people
Right.
that literally they found out the same time you did?
Correct.
It's not that, and I think people, and I get why they have this idea that you're a dealership employee, you're a Volkswagen employee. First of all, that couldn't be further from the truth.
Right.
I was an employee of a really great dealership that was a VW dealership. The company I worked for, my paycheck said Honda on it, because that was the little group, was like part of a Honda dealership.
The management group, whatever, was under
And they
Honda.
own 36 dealerships. Not
Right.
one employee worked for any of the corporate of the brand on
Correct.
their building. So we're not employees of Volkswagen or any brand. Same goes for sales, parts, the whole
Right.
deal. We are employees of the dealership that we work for. So when that stuff happens, like, we're just as blindsided as anybody else.
And frankly, to defend the people we know at VOA, they didn't know anything about this
Nothing
shit.
to do with it.
This shit was exclusively known by a handful of people higher up, and I think because I wanted to have at least some knowledge about this. This was higher ups at VW, and probably a handful of engineering related people and development. And the one thing, and I don't know if you know this, I don't, and I frankly, because I never really cared to try to defend any of this, but I think the one defensible position in this is, I know that the Dieselgate thing happening, because think about it, you know just as well as I do. They talked about this change was in 2009 or whatever, was when they started this scandal, right? But there was a change in the EPA requirements, requiring a lower NOx emissions.
Yeah.
And so they're saying that it's 50 times, but you and I both know the cars didn't change that much.
No.
So
Well, the cars
a Mark V Jetta TDI is basically a Mark V Jetta TDI. There's all CJA. They went from BRM to CJAAs, but they're all CJA engines.
Right. You didn't get any noticeable difference in a diesel engine in any of the car platforms till the Passat came out
Correct.
in 12.
Right.
But that 9, 10, 11, actually 2009 to 2014, other than Passat,
They're the same car.
other than Touareg, and like the bigger Audis minus the A3, 'cause I'm not exactly sure. I think the like 5, 6 Q cars all had more
Three-
the
three-
Touareg,
they had
the
3-liter TDIs,
turbo, which were also included in this whole scandal or nonsense or whatever.
But my point is that the 07, if you had an 07 Jetta TDI, because 06 would be a BRM, 07 would be a CJA.
There was no 7. There was no
8.
There was no 7. There was no 8.
So so they
took
went
2
straight to
years.
9.
So
Okay.
back when, let's travel back in time a little bit to 2006, 7, 8, 9, that vintage, kind of like in the early height of my career, I would say. We had heard through the grapevine that like Volkswagen was going all in on diesel. We were going to have the diesel in everything. They were taking 2 years off to
ramp up.
really focus on getting the diesel right. The Jetta got released in 09, late 08, early 09 as a Mark V Jetta. And it was Green Car of the Year, this really great thing, insane fuel economy, awesome power. And the car delivered on that.
Yeah.
Like, let's take the emissions out for a second. The car delivered on everything that they promised. Insane fuel economy, great. I mean, drive an ALH and then drive a CJA.
It's not even close.
I love the ALH. I think it's a great engine.
It's a solid engine for reliability.
But it's not a powerhouse.
It's slow. Even a tuned ALH is slow. It's hard to stomach, honestly.
Yeah. So they came out with this. It was all full go diesel, and that was great. It was good for us. You know, traditionally as a VW tech, the diesel customer was a better customer in that they knew their car really well. They knew what was required of them as part of the maintenance and care of their vehicle during ownership, and they made the repairs and maintenance as they needed. And that was like the bread and butter, and it was great. And then we started to see software changes and weird things happening. And it's hard to correlate exactly a software update you do in 2010 to the nonsense that happened in 2015.
Right.
But you start to look at kind of you know,
well, hindsight's always 20.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
At the time, and for people who aren't familiar, cars oftentimes have software updates for a variety of things. Sometimes it might be some sort of weird idle issue or something along those lines. There might be a software update to address this issue, and it's usually accompanied by a TSB that explains the circumstance to use it in, or blah blah or whatever. At the dealer level, you'll never really know all the details of it. Sometimes they explain why, but sometimes they don't.
Here's the other thing too, is that you have an update. And let's you know, the way we did updates at this vintage was plug in the scan tool, run a full scan, dial up the mothership, you punch in an update code, and it updates the software, whatever that is, whether it's a radio, whether it's an ECM, TCM, doesn't matter. It does the software update, way hands off from the technician standpoint. Essentially, you're just a monkey pushing a button.
Isn't that what they are?
What we don't know, too, is if you bring your car in on May 1st, and I punch in the code 555 as an update, and then you bring your car in, October 31st, and I punch in that same code 5555 as an update, on the backside,
Might be something completely different.
It could be totally different. It could trigger a TCM update where it was just an ECM update, and we're getting a little nerdy with how actually that works. So let's go back in time a little bit when all this stuff first came out, and it was, you know, first when it came out, everybody's like, from what I was saying anyway, and I did a video on it very, very early when this came out. I'm like, look, we don't know what's happening. Yeah. Calm down.
I did too,
Chill out. Like, let's see where this goes, which clearly everybody dove off the fucking cliff about it. But you'd mentioned customer stories, and there were some of that, like stomping and
lunatic
mad,
people,
just
yelling at people and whatever.
Crazy. Most people were like, I don't know what the hell's going on, but like, this is a car that's important to me. I bought it because it was a Green Car of the Year or great fuel economy, whatever. I don't want my diesel ruined.
Right.
I remember very vividly, this was probably a week after like it really gained traction in a story in the news, and this woman comes in, and I was the type of technician that if I'm walking through the waiting room and I see someone sitting there, I'll probably say hi. Just, how you doing? Everything going well? Like, whatever, right? And there's this woman in the waiting room, and I'd never seen her before, so I was like, hey, how you doing today? She's like, ugh, I tell you, I'm like, boy. All right,
This was a mistake.
let me settle in for this one. And I truly, like, for the most part, I think I'm just like this weird bird. Do you want some more ice?
Cool.
There's a little water in there, but
That's all right.
this is delicious, by the way.
It's pretty good,
I'm
actually.
very much enjoying this. You'll see as I finish this, I'll barely be able to sit up straight and talk. But I remember this woman, and we actually really had an incredibly good conversation about what was going on. And turns out she was there to trade her car in.
She didn't want to.
When she heard what was going on, and she seemed to be a pretty well-educated woman, not like, oh my God, hysteria.
Not just hysteria.
The news didn't tell her to go do this, so she did it. She seemed to be a very educated woman. She's like, look, I bought this car. The main reason was because it was supposed to be a green car. It was supposed to be so good for the environment and great fuel economy. And I feel like I got cheated. Like, she legit felt like someone stabbed her in the back on this deal, and I get it. Like, I get why she felt that.
I
way.
understand spending your hard-earned money and feeling taken advantage of, no question.
By this car, she thought she did right by the universe on buying.
Right, and I think that was part of the hysteria was related to that. A little heavy on that one. Part of the hysteria was related to that thing, which is. Which was pure emotion, right? The people had reactions that were pure emotion. They hadn't really thought through it. Maybe they don't handle problems like adults do, and and they instead yell and scream at people and stamp their feet like a fucking idiot. But I get the reaction though, and certainly regardless. I mean, and not to mention, we haven't even talked about the idea of the people who were legitimately scared of like. Is my car going to be way slower after this? Is my car going to get shit fuel mileage after this? And it's like literally all of the components that made it good, you were afraid of it's not going to be that good because of now, in my opinion, and I don't know how you feel, but I think everybody got a fucking sweetheart of a deal. I mean, I knew people who drove a car 100,000 miles and paid zero for the car.
Yep.
Like, they drove a car for 100,000 miles and paid $0 net.
So you got like the whole spectrum, right? You got people that, like that lady, boy, if that lady would have waited like 2 weeks, she would have fucking hit a home run. I felt, when I heard like all the shit they were doing, I like instantly thought of that lady and felt super bad for her. But you had the people that like legit drove a car for free for a few years because everybody also got, calm down. Also got $1,000, $500 to spend at the dealership. Yeah,
immediately.
Like that. Yeah. Like checks in the mail.
And then they got the extra like $8,000 or whatever the number was after the fact.
You had people taking advantage and like buying. And I'm not saying one way's wrong or like the system's there if you can leverage your finances and do it. Like,
so you probably
hey, get on with yourself.
So apparently they changed the standards. We had heard of a dealer local to us, a body shop who was buying cars and basically stripping them, like interiors and
like
shit out of them.
Well,
the douchebag who stripped the car, he took the doors off and all kinds of shit.
Basically a shell with like a seat that was like a bucket or something. Like, dipshit, what do you expect? Like, you're not proving how awesome you are. But you had kind of the whole spectrum of people, and I think for the most part, people were not happy that they had to do what they were doing with their car, but they're like, this is too good of a deal to pass up.
100%.
If I don't do this, I'm dumb. And like, why wouldn't I cap it? I would have. Hell yeah, give me
100%.
Bro, give me my money. My old boss is like, take this.
Hell yeah. If I could drive a car for 5 years, drive 100,000 miles, and then just walk away from it, never having paid anything.
Yeah.
Like, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
I don't even understand. To me, it's insane why anybody would be upset unless you're emotionally attached to a car. Some people do that. I'm maybe because I don't have a soul. I've never had that.
A ginger,
yeah.
Even though his
yes.
hair's a little darker.
It's like I'm like a ginger with just like dyed hair. That's all. So yeah, I definitely, that whole thing was weird to me. But I did get the concern, especially in the beginning. Yep. The concern about all the stuff made sense to me. You know, I think I made a video probably similar to yours in the sense that we didn't know dick in the beginning, and everybody was panicking. Yep. The crazy thing to me is people are so hysterical when this shit happens, and everybody rushed to trade their car.
Yep.
And then people were giving them like $6,000 below trade-in value.
Nothing.
And they're like, fuck Volkswagen. And like, no, they're taking advantage of you. That's why you should be mad at them, not Volkswagen. They're taking advantage of the news.
Yeah.
To fuck you out of money.
Well, and to be fair to the place that you're trading it in, like they didn't know either.
Well, for sure,
they didn't know.
They were
whether
taking
that
a
car
risk to
was
give you
gonna
anything,
be-
and so they're going to shoot low to make sure they cover their ass, so that if things go great for them, yes, they'll make a shitload of money. But if things go terrible, in worst case scenario,
they're at least not.
going to get killed. Right? Exactly. Which, again, to be fair, they don't know what's going on,
Right.
and dealerships probably did the same thing somewhat because
We had no idea what the hell was
right.
going on.
Nobody. There's this weird thing that when stuff is like this happens, that everybody thinks that people at dealerships or some other people that they know everything that's supposed to happen.
We have
it's like,
nothing. Oftentimes, people like the public will find out, especially when it comes to like recalls and certain campaigns and updates. People in the public find out about this stuff
before dealer employees.
Because as a
sometimes.
dealer employee, like it's not real until it's an official statement from
Correct.
VW or Audi or whoever the brand is.
Right.
So if Johnny Race Car comes in and is like, hey, my car's got a recall on it, or calls and is like, hey, what do you know about this recall on my car? We look it up and like, there's
no recall, right?
You know, automatically we're stupid because we don't know what the fuck we're talking about. Like, bro, if I believed everything they said on the internet, I mean, come on, let's.
If it's on the internet, it must be true.
That's what I keep telling people. Abe Lincoln said that, I think.
I think he did say that.
So, it's this whole big fucked up thing, and it was really weird at first, and then there was a lot of, like, no communication, nothing, just, like, throw the dealerships out and hope they figure it out for a while. But the thing that I think really bothers me about the whole situation is three things. One, like, yes, they lied. Yes, they should be punished. I totally agree with that. However, what I do have a problem with is putting VW on a pedestal and treating it like that one is the only company that's ever done it. Bro, if you believe that shit, you're delusional.
There's multiple companies that were even implicated
In this.
aside from VW and Mercedes before all this happened. There's multiple brands.
Every company does it. If you don't think so, again, you're delusional. What about Chevrolet with the ignition switch issues where people actually
did die? Yeah.
The Toyota unintended acceleration, was it real? Was it not? I don't know.
Who knows? Yeah, we don't even know that.
But there's all these things that car manufacturers go through. Tesla with their cars crashing into, police cars and tractor trailers and whatnot. Everybody cheats until they get caught. Then they pay their fines and they continue to cheat.
Yeah.
Also, that software and those components are not Volkswagen
Those are
parts.
from Bosch. Yeah.
Bosch wrote that software. Bosch made those components. To me, Bosch is as guilty, biggest air quotes in the world, as anybody from VW.
I'm sure they protected their ass by saying this is not for and this is not intended for
off-road
blah
use
blah
only,
whatever.
It's all the same stuff I say when I take emissions components off cars. It's definitely track use only.
Yeah, only for racetracks.
But there's all that. So as a technician, though, and I think all the other dealership employees at the time can totally relate to this, like you're whining about having to wait 2 months for $1,000. That shit over the time of working in the dealership cost me about half a year's salary.
Yeah. A lot of people don't know this, but a lot of dealerships and dealer technicians, dealer techs got laid off. A good portion of them. They're probably the only staff that really, and maybe some advisors probably got left too, but probably the worst advisors. So
yeah. 10% off, fine. But it cost, and that's I use myself as an example because I can speak in accurate numbers,
right.
But the whole dealership, think about, and we weren't impacted nearly as much as the TDI specialty shops were, as guys like Dieselgate, where I'd messaged Jim and I was like, hey, what's going on? Just kind of checking in with him. He's like, dude, my business is down like 75%. Yeah. Because all these people that were buying these really cool little diesel things that I make, they all gave their cars back.
Right.
And that's huge. It's huge. And it costs so much money to so many people. And I was like in this weird shop foreman state at the time, I think. Maybe not yet, but maybe. So it could have been worse. And the whole time it's like, well, you're going to get the recall repairs done because we're going to send all those to the dealer. Bullshit.
Right.
Because they had a ton of those things done at port. a ton of cars have been crushed and gone away.
Well, they had to. A lot of cars, they just have been sitting for forever as part of the buyback.
I
yeah.
assume there's still lots of diesel cars sitting somewhere. I
I don't
think
know.
they've all been processed.
I don't know. I've seen, I mean, as of a couple of years ago, we're still seeing.
By the way, that part, 100% assumption, no fact or.
I think it's possible. It's hard to assume that they could have possibly processed that many cars that quickly. But I mean, they were. If you're not familiar, you can go out and Google it. There's pictures of lots filled with Volkswagens.
Imagine the biggest airport in the United States and their parking lot completely full of Volkswagen, Jettas and Golfs and Touaregs and whatever else.
Just TDI cars that are just
all of them.
sitting there, unable to be sold, waiting to get crushed, whatever.
And that brings me to kind of my third point of why this pisses me off so much, is we're so worried about emissions. We care so much about the fucking environment, which I consider myself very concerned about the environment.
Yeah.
Very
I
much
do too.
so, more than most people probably. I don't virtue signal it or anything like that, but like I legit care about the environment. So we've said VW has ruined the environment. We've said they're killing polar bears and all this other stuff. So we want action. We want results. Well, what do? We have everyone drive to the dealership and leave their car. We have people that wouldn't have otherwise bought a car buy a car. Demand for car goes up. There's production involved in that, which causes pollution. Now all these cars, all of them get put on an 18-wheeler, driven somewhere, then probably driven somewhere again, to sit and rot, and then driven somewhere else again to get fixed and may or may not make it on the road. We're also doing more fluid changes because the car's just sat. We're putting tires on cars.
Dispose of that, blah, whatever.
It goes up and up and up. And then...
That was not good for the environment, all that shit.
And then we decide, okay, it's a really good idea to have these cars that use this diesel exhaust fluid to reduce NOx emissions. We're going to up the percentage of AdBlue that these cars use. So now we're producing a car that requires a fluid to be topped off. I don't know, our Touaregs, call it every 10,000 miles. I don't know what it is. It's a little bit more than that. And we have these plastic jugs that now we get to throw away. So you mean to tell me, I get heated about this one. You mean to fucking tell me that all that shit that we did after the fact is less pollution
is a net positive
than the cars that if we would have tweaked the software maybe
we could have made it work, right?
Which we did anyway, so they're on the road.
Well, what I want to know about this, and I completely agree. I mean, and the question, I think there are people who could do calculations to try to figure out the net positive, negative to that. I don't think, frankly, you're going to get an accurate number anyway. It's all going to be speculation. It's just way too many pieces to it. But what happened when they changed the NOx emissions requirements? You know, all the Dieselgate thing, everything you see was always the amount, 50% more NOx emissions than they should have had. But what they don't say is the parts per million. And my question is, what's the parts per million change from a BRM to a Dieselgate car?
Yeah.
Like,
it's probably...
Is it nothing? Because if it's nothing...
Can't be nothing.
Then what's the deal?
They have to... The CJAA and the newer gen have to be infinitely lower...
I would assume
than the BRM, because you can just stand next to
right and smell it.
I don't recommend like standing next to a diesel tailpipe and like huffing it in.
Yeah, it has a very, very specific scent and odor and fumes to it, and to me, it's like okay, so it already had a significantly less emissions than an 06 car. It's fine with it. I get the cheating, all that stuff. I certainly am never going to defend that.
No,
my whole point is the hysteria around the actual problem and how they didn't talk about the parts per million and the change that, the EPA changed from X to Y. And my speculation, what I've always thought about this is the reason why they cheated was because all the cars were already produced when they made when the EPA made these changes that were required. These cars were already produced. And so they're like, we're going to have to...
Yeah, what are we going to do?
What are we going to do with, I don't know, 400,000 cars that are already made?
Yep, that we've spent
we spent
$1 billion.
Who knows what the fucking number is?
Yep.
Marketing, whatever, even just total cost of production that you would have to literally scrap the entire drivetrain or whatever and start from the drawing board. Those changes and this whole thing was a reaction to the EPA making a change before, so they didn't know about it, and that's why they did it. Now, do I agree with it? I still don't agree with it, but the reality is that it was, at least in my opinion, probably done as a reaction to a change that was made that was beyond their control, and they just did it to try to save their ass.
And I think there's also a certain percentage of elite upper management in these type of companies that are insanely arrogant.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And feel like they can, and because they often do,
get away with anything.
Way out of a problem or lie their way out of a problem. And I think that was the thing. I think the lying, straight up arrogant lying to whatever that college was, and then the EPA, and then I think that was the thing that, like, okay, you want to do that?
Right.
We're gonna fix that
problem.
Well,
I'm sure there are conspiracies around this. There was an interesting kind of thing that happened, and I'm not really much for conspiracies, except for the one where Jeffrey Epstein most definitely did not kill himself.
Yeah, so is Tupac dead?
I think Tupac might still be alive. He and Michael Jackson are hanging out with
living their
Jeffrey
best
Epstein.
Oh well,
That's probably about right.
That took a weird turn, but yeah, damn, Paul, I think you hit it. Next week on Conspiracy 101.
The likely scenario of all that happening and the conspiracy around all that, there was some kind of dispute in the U.S. with the Chattanooga plant that was happening right before this diesel thing happened.
Yeah.
I have no idea if they're related at all,
I don't either.
or if it maybe raised awareness to create some incentive to say, like, oh, let's see how legit this shit really is. Who knows, right?
Yeah.
Like,
well, ultimately, we're never going to know, right? There's probably about 35 people on the planet that know exactly what happened and how it all went down.
100%.
And, the rest is TV shows sensationalizing two idiots drinking whiskey and apple juice, apple cider. Sorry,
it's fancy apple juice.
It's tangy and how does it go? How does Flanders do it? Sweet and brown. You're in Cider Town. It's tangy and yellow. Tangy and yellow. You got juice there, fella. Why do I remember that? But just two idiots rambling on about whatever nonsense that
we certainly don't have any special insight. That's for sure.
No special insight. This all comes from like legit our experience, and again, being in the dealership at the time, being in the parts business at the time, and having so many friends and colleagues and coworkers like legit lose their fucking job.
Mm-hmm.
And you're worried about a little bit less fuel economy. And when I say you're worried about it, there were people that were like really great customers that you could just have a chat with, and you're like, right. Mr. XYZ, I don't damn know either. Right. This shit's crazy. Like, you could legit swear to with a customer because you're just bullshitting because they're great people. Right. And then you had people legit like losing their shit. And here's me like, I don't give a damn about your $50 fucking dollars, bro. This shit's cost me like 30 grand this year. I'd like to smack you in the mouth.
Right.
Of course you can't, but
no. And there's certainly a perspective problem. I think that always happen in these situations. And some people are going to be hysterical. Some people don't handle things particularly well. But yeah, the Dieselgate thing, I think, had a bigger impact on the brand. I think the one place that I felt like it didn't really have an impact, but was really overblown, is, at least what I saw, was this trend of people who would buy a Volkswagen and about a year later, a new one, try to sell it or trade it into another dealership. And they would say that Dieselgate is the reason why they weren't getting the appropriate money and why they were underwater.
That's not how cars work, fool.
Yeah, it's like, you can't buy a new car, and then have equity in it or even close. You're fucking. No. I don't know how people don't realize that you cannot buy a new car and trade it in somewhere within a year or two and get even a reasonable amount, unless you put a shitload of money down.
Which you still spent the money, so you still lost anyway.
It's still a net loss for you anyway. You just don't realize it because you're not taking the hit. So whether you feel it or not, it's irrelevant. You're taking the loss.
Right.
Just keep driving the fucking car.
You're going to waste less money that way anyway. You're going to make a car payment. You might as well keep the car that you already have, unless you hate it. And like, there's times where sometimes it's just like, yep, all right, effed myself on that deal. Let's get on and
100%.
And move on with it.
100%.
You know, and I think now though, like, I don't know, and it would be interesting to find out if this number is find outable, how many of the cars that were turned in are actually now on the road. I would probably guess less than half.
I would honestly, I would be shocked if it was half.
I'm if, like you said, Charles, you got to put a number on it. I'd be in the like 35 to 40%.
I was gonna say 20.
I have no idea. Like,
because to me,
how do you
how
there's
many
no
cars
way
got
you'll ever
fixed?
know.
How many cars got fixed that you know of that had diesel fixes?
A lot of them. A lot of cars got fixed.
There were
Because I'm still seeing how they got fucked up. Not personally, but I'm
Yeah.
seeing them like in the universe.
in the ether. Yeah, I just think. I mean, bottom line is, if you get whatever $8,000 for a car that is all miled up, has potentially a few problems,
Yeah.
and you get the chance to fucking skate away, it's like,
Yeah.
fuck this,
You're
I'm out of here.
Making money on
Yeah.
the car? Come on, you'd be stupid
Right.
not to.
Correct.
And-
The only people who kept those cars are the older ones. Because the new ones, okay, it was a little bit different story.
Yeah.
It's hard to walk away from a car you had, and even still, those people probably did too. But yeah, I just think so many people, it didn't make sense. It didn't make financial sense
No.
because the opportunity
Yeah.
to take the fix versus just take the money
Take the money.
wasn't really there.
I had one customer I remember very vividly. He had a diesel sport wagon, Jetta sport wagon, and I think his wife drove a diesel Passat, and they traded them both in. He got a GTI. She got a Passat, like a 1.8 gas Passat. They ended up, I think, paying for one of the cars with the money they got back.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
they went from two car payments to having one car essentially for free.
With one car payment, right.
And having another car
Yeah.
payment. And he was like, Charles, I love these cars. Like, and he was just such a cool dude, one, and a great customer, two. I actually just gave his rear sway bar away that he gave me when he traded his car. He's like, yeah, you take whatever you want off this car. Allegedly, that's what happened anyway. Off-road use only. And he's like, but as much as I love this car, it literally makes no sense to not trade it in. And then now kind of like coming full circle on the flip side, I own, right, all that shit I just talked. I own a Dieselgate car.
Yeah.
My 2015 Touareg is a post-fix diesel Touareg, and it's. I always want to say it's been great, and I think the Touareg hit our like best top five most
What do you mean?
reliable.
That episode wasn't even about best anything. It was just
No.
about Touaregs.
Yeah, how shitty they are and how awesome they are. And in the almost 2 years we've had it, had an NOx sensor and a DPF put on it, which I don't care. It was under warranty.
Free, right?
So, like, it was a no-brainer purchase for us. We looked at buying an SQ5, and Jesus, it was like double what our
Honestly,
mortgage payment.
the warranty on
crazy.
a
Crazy.
3-liter TDI Touareg.
Well, it was a 100K powertrain anyway. From
Yeah, but
some
now
years.
it's 130 bumper to bumper. Is that right, or something like that? What? It's some
I don't
insane
know.
warranty.
It's I don't. I
Maybe not bumper to bumper. Maybe it's
Yeah.
only
It was like
emissions related stuff.
Yeah,
which
it was a
which
long
applies
time.
to a shitload of things on the engine.
Lot.
Almost anything,
A
realistically, anything
lot.
that might go wrong.
The way, so of course,
The language is written in a
don't
very specific
quote
way.
either one of us on
Yeah.
any of this crap nonsense that we're spewing.
Especially we're drinking.
Whew. What do you think of this, by the way?
I like it. It's
Yeah, me
actually
too.
pretty good.
It's super good.
Yeah.
Might have to pause and get some more ice. But anyway, initially the way things were written when it came to this really killer warranty extension, because if you got your car fixed, you got a ton of money, an insane warranty, and like it didn't really affect fuel economy and power in most cars. Some it did, weirdly, some it didn't. All cars are different despite having like the exact same parts. The the addition of them adding up is always a little different, but it was essentially written that if something went wrong with the car that could be attributed to emissions or impact emissions
Right.
in any way, it should be covered.
Right.
And as a technician, also as someone who's insanely good at justifying things, like if the tire pressure's low, that shit affects my emissions.
There's a lot of things
you need to plug my tire for free. That's obviously an extreme example, but essentially it got to the point where if you interpreted the language a certain way, which if they are not writing it in a way that you can't interpret it any other way, then it's open to interpretation. Right. If the check engine light came on,
it's under warranty.
Covered.
Right.
Like that's why the check engine light comes on, because it's some kind of emissions component.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, we and people are having cars fixed, and it's just, I think what bothers me though today is like, it happened, it was bullshit. They should have been punished for all the lying and crap that went on. But I feel like it's almost like when you go to prison and you're a felon and like you have to live with that for the rest of your life, which in some ways is kind of bullshit. Like, people are still making comments about it in comment sections like, bro, that was a long time ago and you probably had nothing to do with it and you probably don't know what you're talking about anyway. Like, there's no such thing as a cheat box. A cheat box doesn't exist.
I don't even know what a cheat box is.
That's what people would say.
Volkswagen
Volkswagen installed that cheat box.
Oh.
I think they were talking about an ECM,
which
some cars have.
I guess that could be a cheat box. I was thinking of something that had to do with an intermarital affair.
Oh, no. Or maybe was like a Game Genie.
Ooh.
Game Genie. Yeah.
Game Genie was definitely a cheat box, for sure.
Did you ever have a Game Genie?
I didn't. I was definitely not in a position in my childhood to have a Game Genie.
I'll show you, cheat.
I was fortunate to save up for a Nintendo to begin with.
Was that like, so I never had one either, but that was like a separate thing, almost like buying another game.
Yes, it plugged in between. Yes, it would plug in between.
That's awesome.
If my memory serves me correctly, and the game or the Game Genie would hang out of the Nintendo.
So was it Nintendo or was it to like start at Super Nintendo? This is a gray area for me. Like I know a little about.
I'll be honest with you, it's getting very fuzzy for me right now because it's a long time ago and the alcohol. And,
so if you know, what,
leave in the comments. Game Genie.
Drop us the Game Genie, because I'm picturing now like if you had a bad, like, you know how Nintendo was kind of squirrely and you had to like. Everybody had their own method of doing it. It only worked on your Nintendo. It up and down a bunch of times. Did you also have to do that for the Game Genie too?
For sure. You definitely. Yeah. Yes. There is no anybody of our age. If you do this, you just show them they know what you're doing. You're blowing that fucking game out.
And if you have your tongue out of your mouth while you do that, it's a totally different thing.
Yeah, that's not the same thing. Yeah.
So Dieselgate cars, it was definitely an interesting time, and it's just so weird that it's still a thing and still something to talk about. But what about you guys? Did you guys have experience with that? Did you buy a Dieselgate car? Did you sell one? Did you make a whole crap load of money like a lot of people did? Because there was a lot of people that made like bank.
The number of people. The thing that shocked me the most is the number of people who moved into Golf Rs.
Yeah.
Because I was like, obviously as we became kind of more prevalently known for Mark 7 related stuff, more Mark 7 people obviously are reaching out to us, whatever. And I saw a lot of people who went from TDI guys to Golf R guys. And I'm like, these don't seem the same at all.
But you got 10 extra grand and you want to go.
But you got 10 grand, you want a fancy ass car.
I actually know someone that did exactly that. He loved his TDI, but he's like, I always wanted a Golf R. Now I have the funds to do it. Why the hell wouldn't I? I'm like, hell yeah, bro.
Right.
I'm with you on that one. So with that, let's wrap it up. The drink was fantastic, as you can see by the amount I drank. You can always tell whether I like a drink or not because I either drink it or don't. Like, I'm pretty unsubtle about things. Also, the extra rambling
helps too.
It led to
makes it more fluid. Yeah. Also, if you need to go see some Amish people,
holy crap, that is amazing apple cider.
Eastern View Farm.
Yeah.
Charles saw them somewhere in
they
Pennsylvania.
They probably don't have a website.
It's very unlikely.
But they are on TikTok.
You think I think the Amish have a very, very good social presence on TikTok.
Yeah, why wouldn't they?
Amish dances. That's an episode. Dieselgate, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah. Thanks for watching. Don't forget, if you want to listen, you can do that. And I have nothing more to say.
Bye.
So, bye-bye.